Welcome back, everyone, to Meditations by Gregory T. Obert, bringing you the best new guided meditations and mental health discussions every week. I'm your host, clinical psychologist Dr. Gregory T. Obert. Thank you so much for joining me today. And in fact, I have just the greatest gift that I could give for all of you because I have on someone who is super interesting, who's done incredible work in her career, and I'm just so excited to pick her brain about her story and mental health and recovery. So, Miss Kat Greenleaf created and hosted NBC's long-running series Talk Stoop, the celebrity interview show filmed on her Brooklyn front steps. Over 9 years, she hosted hundreds of guests, racked up 4 Emmys, launched countless adventures, and had so much fun. And then she got fired. And after losing her job, she thought she'd never go back to journalism. With no other marketable skills and no idea what to do next, she entered an epic, dark night of the soul. Looking for light, her family moved to the beach in Coney Island. There, Kat got serious about her own sobriety and began bringing recovery meetings to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women and men. That work inspired her to found the nonprofit Restorative Housing Organization, which we will talk more about. She loves it, but once a journalist, always a journalist. So when she weirdly got name-checked on Hacks last season, she took it as a sign. Soon after, she heard her old friend, musician Steve Earle, talking openly about his sobriety on a radio show, a thing she didn't know people were even allowed to do. And she realized she wanted to be the one talking to Steve Earle about sobriety on a show. Hence, Soberness, her podcast, was born in September 2024. And I will say we're going to get a little PG with the language here, but that's okay because I think it allows for a great discussion. So Soberness, the concept is freedom from fuckery. The fuckery of addiction, the self-inflicted fuckery, and the fuckery that shows up uninvited. Soberness, the podcast, is where celebrity raconteurs spill what broke them, what saved them, and what still fucks with them today. Miss Kat Greenleaf, thank you so much for being here with me and my audience.
I'm thrilled, and it was so cute hearing you say fuckery over and over.
You weren't expecting that, huh?
You said PG, and then you launched right into it. So.
That's right. Well, I had a drum instructor for a long time, and whenever he'd talk about discipline, he would say, all right, guys, we're going to get a little PG here, and then he'd launch into something that was clearly not PG. But
I love that. I love it.
So, usually, I like to start with a quick little icebreaker, which is tell me your life story in 30 seconds or less. But I think for you, it needs to be at least 35 seconds because you have done so much in your life. And I would love to hear, in your own words, just a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you're at today.
Oh, boy. Okay, so
you don't have to use 35 seconds, by the way. That's just a joke.
I mean, there's so many different fronts that we could start on. Let's see, because we came together through my sobriety podcast, I can start with. I'll start there, which is so I knew from the time I heard about alcohol, that I was going to love it, and that I was going to probably do it to the extreme. And that one day I would have to end up getting sober. And I knew all this as a very young person because I really started drinking when I was 12. And so I stopped drinking at 42. So that was, around 42. So about, 30 good years of drinking. Mm-hmm. I white knuckled it, meaning I recovered alone for the first 10 years about. And then in the last couple of years, really started reaching out and being in recovery groups, which allowed me to then start bringing recovery into prisons and start my show. So in fact, experiencing recovery with other people turned out to be a real plus in my mind. So that's one part of my story. Another part of my story is when I was 6 years old, my grandfather mentioned to me that my sister was adopted, and I didn't know before that. And at that moment, I knew I would be adopting kids. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't thought through. It wasn't anything. It was a knowing. And that is what happened. And I adopted, along with my husband, we adopted our 2 sons, Primo and Truman, at birth. In fact, we were in the room with both of them when they were born, which is unusual. And I'm so grateful. And they are now 13 and 16 and the lights of my life.
What an amazing calling, by the way. And just to be able to take care of other people like that. I mean, it's so selfless, and what a great gift you could give them.
Oh, thanks for saying that. It doesn't, yeah, I think that all parenthood is sort of inherently selfish in that we want to be parents.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what starts it, and you want this thing and you want this family. Anywho, I knew that those two we were destined for each other, and it's been that way ever since. But ironically, everyone said to me, "You'll never get married. Nobody wants to marry someone who doesn't want their own kids. Why would you adopt when you can have your own kids?" And I met not only a guy, but the guy. And as it turns out, this is weird. I had spent a great deal of my childhood staring into this man's backyard, but we never met
Huh.
because we grew up around some water in Westchester, New York. And so I was on one side and he was on the other side. And sort of very great Gatsby. And I used to stare into his backyard and I wondered what went on in those big houses. Like they had docks and they were made of stone. I don't know. They just seemed very glamorous. And as it turns out, so I sort of married the boy next door. And well, adoption wasn't what he had in mind. He loved me and he loved my commitment to it. And so we decided that we would adopt one. And if he still felt like he had a big hole in his soul, that we would try to have one ourselves. And I knew that it was never going to come to that, and it never has. So
Wow.
that's been very cool. And then another pillar in my house of stories is, how I came into broadcast, which is I also knew from a young age that I needed to be busy every day. I've never been good with unstructured time. And in so I went into news, not that I felt really smart enough to do the news or even that interested in like news, but I knew I wanted to be busy every day. And I looked around the world of entertainment, and hosts can wait their whole lives to get a phone call. And, anyway, so I started as a traffic reporter at KGO News Talk FM in San Francisco. And
Is
I
that
had this
jingle just burned into your mind? You just.
Yes, forever. And I had this little dachshund called Julio, a mini dachshund, and he and I used to ride in a Cessna plane every night and do the traffic. And I have a terrible sense of direction. I have no sense of direction, actually, and so that was really challenging. But I did that, and that started it all off. And then from there, I little by little worked my way into becoming a features reporter, and from there, that gave birth to my show Talk Stoop, which lasted a good decade on NBC. And I really love that. And I've been a broadcaster my whole life. So I truly, without that job, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do or who to be or how to be. And, but God is good. And it led to some really good self-reflection time. Like I said, I knew from when I was little, I like to be busy. And I think part of why we like to be busy is so that we don't have to be with ourselves. And, I was the busiest. I would only sleep like every other night. And I loved doing things and not thinking or feeling things. And so after losing my job, moving out here to Coney Island, which is right on the beach in Brooklyn,
Mhm.
I got to do a lot of sitting on the rocks and singing to the ocean, um, and it was not an easy process. Meaning, I had all this time to just sit with myself, but I'm very grateful for having had the sort of strength and bravery to do that, to sit and really look at myself. And I was working, with a spiritual teacher, and I worked on and off with therapists, and it ended up being a really fruitful few years. So by the time, as you mentioned in your intro, I did hook back in with Steve Earle and Hank Azaria and other people who had been on my show previously who were out there talking about sobriety. I thought, okay, maybe I can go back to broadcast and talk about something I understand. And so we just kicked off our second season of Soberness, and the unexpected benefit for me has been the wisdom of my guests. As a broadcaster, you just feel like the conduit of the information. At least for me, I don't always feel like the information is meant for me. It's meant for my listeners, right? But because it's also meant for me, I've been able to have conversations around sobriety that have been beneficial in so many ways. Each guest has left me with a different gift. So Anyway, that's my story, but I know
What?
it's longer than 35.
No, that's fine. But this is why I was so excited to have you on, because what a journey that you have. And you sort of kind of went strength and courage, but man, you have really demonstrated so much strength and courage and the self-reflection that is needed to really kind of improve our lives, get to a different, healthier place. It's hard to do that. It's really hard to do that. In
Yeah, I didn't
fact,
like it, by the
yeah,
way. Like it was
who
fun.
does?
Yeah. Some
It,
people might. I don't know. Not me.
well, sometimes it's nice, but then other times it can be really tough and really challenging. And in fact, before we met, I was not only have I been listening to your show, but I also took a look at Talk Stoop. Maybe about an hour before we recorded this, and I was watching the
Yeah.
interview you had with Martha Stewart, where she was totally going off the rails and just not focused. But you were so good at it. You're so good at it. It was so engaging, even though it was 5, 6 minutes, however long the actual clip was. And you did this show for a number of years. You got awards for this show, and to be told, "Hey, you don't have a job anymore," just must have been so devastating.
Oh, yeah, it was the worst. It was absolutely the ugh. Listen, when you feel you are a person or a way and this thing defines you and then you no longer have that definition, and having it ended so ugly, so abruptly, with no real reason given, for me, that was really devastating. And thank God, once again, God is good. So we had lived in downtown Brooklyn where the stoop itself is. That was really my house. And if I had had to stay in that house after losing my job, I just don't know how I would have done it. I probably would have gone back to drinking full time. But I had already had this deal in place to come to Coney Island. And we had planned to buy this Coney Island house and rent it out, but then I saw, well, why don't we flip flop that? We'll rent out the old house and move to a new house so that I can be away from all that, because the whole neighborhood was in on the show. I mean, it was just like everywhere you turn,
Yeah.
and it had been so long, So, uh, yeah. So here's how I did it. And I don't suggest it. I knew I was not prepared to feel any of that, how bad it was. So I just put on steel trap blinders and went forward and looked to do new things. And I moved my family, and I was like, I just can't think about it. I can't go there. I'm not going to think about it. And I tried to do all this other healing, and I not tried to, I did a lot of other healing about in other sort of quadrants of my life. And then at the start of 2024, I could just feel it. You feel it. You feel when the winds are changing or things are coming. And I
Mm-hmm.
basically, the feeling I had at the top of last year was, well, we've now faced and pushed through a lot of things in other areas of my life. Work is next. And I just knew it, and I didn't have to do anything, right? I just was waiting for it to come. And then around March is when I really started to get dissatisfied with not being in broadcast. And but I was afraid because I had been off the air for so long. And like I said, I don't, you know, I mean, I'm under a pretty heavy NDA, so I can't do a lot of talking about this, but
Sure.
I never really got a lot of information about why it ended. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, so uncertainty, I find, or rather, not knowing, not having real answers, whether you like them or not, can almost be worse than having an answer you don't like. And so I was terrified, and I didn't know how I'd be received, and would it look like a has-been just trying to, make her mark again. And so it was terrifying, and I had to wade in little by little. And then, yeah. So point being, it was a really tough time. I wasn't sure how it was going to go down, but I knew that if I was going to be this brave person that I wanted to be, that was busy moving through the blocks in my life, that this was the next one. And, again, if you refer to like when I was really tiny, I knew I wanted to be involved in work uber alles, and I did. And so I was going to have to get back to it sooner or later. In the interim, I started this nonprofit, which I love, and I started doing a lot of volunteering, but I am a broadcaster. It's what I'm made of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I was just talking to myself about this morning, that if I do, because the industry is so different now, and if I do decide to walk away, and I'm not planning on it. But if I do decide to walk away, it will feel better this time because it'll be on my terms, as opposed to before when I felt like it was ripped from me.
Sure.
Uh, uh, my husband, on the day that I got fired, my husband said, I know one day we're going to look back and it's going to be the best thing that ever happened. I don't know. I don't know if it's the best thing that ever happened. I mean, it's what happened. So I make it into the best thing that ever happened, right?
Yeah.
And it did open up a lot of deeper work and important things for me. So I can't say it's not a good thing that it did happen, but still didn't feel good. So now my relationship to broadcast is different in that you can't have your first love twice. And so I don't love soberness in the same way that I loved Talk Stoop. And probably some of that is protective. And also I'm much older now. I launched Talk Stoop 16 years ago, and I'd been working already around the clock as a featured reporter and a regular reporter before that, and a traffic reporter before that. It'd been years. And so, anyway, I had a lot of energy toward the project then. And now it's not that I don't have a lot of energy, but it's more grown up energy than I did when I started my career.
The word that's coming to mind is selective. It doesn't have to be constant go, go, go. You can actually pick and choose kind of when you record. You mentioned you're in seasons, so it's not like you have to constantly have something churned out 5 days a week or however often.
Right. And no one's paying me to do it yet, really. So I can do whatever I want. I can say bad words. I can look ugly. I can do whatever I want. Of course, I do say bad words. I try to not look ugly, and I do try to keep a consistent release schedule. But again, like, what's so wild about the podcast space is nothing bad happens if you don't put your podcast out on the Monday that you said you're gonna. People just wait. It's not like in TV where it felt like the world was gonna end if we didn't keep our schedule, because there were so many other things depending on it, other shows. Anyway,
sure.
That's getting in the real weeds there. But yes, it's a much different experience, but it's a little less. The stakes are lower.
Yeah, and what a great gift you can give to people with this podcast. I was listening to was it Nick Thune, who you interviewed?
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to that episode the other day, and just a great conversation that you had with him. And the fact that you can bring this idea of community to people who don't necessarily have that, to help them work through their own mental health struggles. And I always consider substance use disorders of any kind to be lumped in with mental health struggles.
Sure.
What a great gift you can give them, because you even said earlier you didn't really have that. In fact, you were kind of just white knuckling it yourself. And I wonder what that was like for you.
Well, I'm not much of a joiner. I've always been, and that even sounds really snotty to say it like that, like, oh, if you're a joiner, that's bad. It's not bad. I always wanted to be part of groups. I said I wanted to be part of groups, and then the second I get up next to them, I find I pull away. It's an automatic response. I'm not really good in groups. So I felt like, of course, this is the only way to get sober is by yourself. And and my main people in my life, my husband and my two kids, they're not drinkers. So I felt like, well, this is just something that I can just do in the comfort and safety of my own little posse. And I've had to really do a deep dive on why I'm like that or why it went down that way. And I'll tell you, I don't know why. I don't know why, but that is how it went down. And I probably maybe would have healed faster sooner if I was in, AA or any other kind of recovery group, maybe, but that's not me. And also, I really like being alone. I really, I don't, I don't know. I've been that way since childhood. And there are certain things that make me bristle, like when people say, we are all one. I don't know if we all are one. I don't think we are, like your reality and my reality can be very different. I don't actually. And, the thing about, especially about alcoholism for me, is it's a disease I did not ask to have. But I hold all the power, and only I hold all the power to not actively have it every day, to not, there's always a moment to grab a drink only I can say, don't my that my AA home group isn't the one that gets in the way of it. It's not God who gets in the way of it. It is me. And I believe in God and I love my AA home group. But it comes down to me. It comes down to personal decisions. So I guess that ethos is part of what keeps me kind of a lone wolf recoverer. I'm working on it little by little. It's funny, the groups that I feel the most comfortable are in prison. I I talk in those groups, but I really don't talk in any other group.
Yeah. Well, I certainly definitely want to pick your brain on the prison stuff in a bit. But the thing that you just said, which I think is really just a breath of fresh air, because I talk a lot. I have talked about in the past about treatments like dialectical behavior therapy, really trying to walk the middle path rather than just kind of either or. And it seems to me that even though it would be nice if the conversation would evolve, we're still kind of stuck in this area where either using substances is completely and totally a disease or is completely and totally a choice. But it sounds to me like what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying is it's actually neither of
So
those things because it's both. And I
I
wonder,
love the way you're putting this. Yeah.
yeah, I wonder how that's kind of helped guide your own recovery.
Okay, that's really good. So I said earlier that doing the show has been very beneficial to me personally. One of the first most important episodes I did for myself was with Dr. Drew, and I was still at the point in my recovery where I was beating my head against the wall. Is it a disease? Is it a choice? Is it nature or is it nurture? All the questions. And he broke it down for me this way. He's like, Kat, is the brain an organ? Yes. So or muscle, whatever it is, organ.
Yeah.
And he said, he said, so can we agree that an organ can have a disease? Yes. Okay. Well, therefore, alcoholism is a disease of the brain. And I then followed it up with something about decision. And he was like, oh, that's a really slippery slope. I don't want you to talk about it like it's a choice. So it is and it isn't. It is a choice. It isn't a choice, meaning, okay, so I come with that gene, I come with that affliction, I come to the planet with that syndrome, but still the choice remains. I'm sorry, even in the darkest moments, even when you're so weakened by the disease, and we all were, there has to be the power of choice. Otherwise, you'd never get sober. I mean, every person who gets sober had to make a choice to do so. So I think you're absolutely right. And I've been meaning to this. I don't know why I haven't. Maybe we should do it right now. I've been meaning to talk to ChatGPT about it, saying I need like 2 lines that succinctly say what I keep trying to spit out here about it being not a choice and a choice. And that it's
Mm-hmm.
both things at the same time.
Yeah.
Because uh, I don't know, because that is what I believe, and it's to me the only way that I think people can really get well is if you kind of realize that you're in partnership with the greater disease, whether you want it or not. I have this thing, so the disease is going to do what it's going to do, and then I got to do what I'm going to do. But we're in
Yeah.
this thing together.
Absolutely. And just beautiful way of saying that. Because, of course, I mean, we have data on this. We've studied, we have stats. I mean, there are some people who are just more vulnerable to particular types of substances, alcohol. Some people are just more sensitive to that, developing some sort of alcohol use disorder. They can go to detox, they can, get sober, but that's not just the end of it. There's more to it than that, unless someone wants to take like Antabuse for the rest of their lives, but that doesn't sound all that
Right.
pleasant.
No, and by the way, even that, I've had guys working for me who can drink their way right through that stuff. So,
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And so, from my perspective, what I do with my work in any kind of substance use setting that I've been in, it's the behavioral component, it's the cognitive component, and that's exactly where the choice comes in that you're talking about. That we can continue to put this stuff in our bodies, but we don't have to, and we can learn ways to actually say no.
right. It's a muscle. Sobriety is a muscle. And for me, it's every time you don't take that drink. It's every time you don't go to the bar with your friends. It's you build your muscle. You build your muscle so it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've been doing a lot of heavy lifting over the course of your life. So you're quite strong. Those muscles are quite strong for you, which is wonderful.
Thank you. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
I
maybe
feel like
not. I don't know.
I feel like I could be doing better at it. I feel like if listen, I don't know if I'm a good sobriety person because, for example, if you have 5 years of sobriety and then you have a glass of wine one night because you're at Sabbath dinner with your family and you just want it, but then the next day you're sober again. I would never say, go back to the beginning of your day count, go to
Yep.
step one or
Give your
whatever.
coin back. Yep.
I don't believe in it. I just don't. I just think, okay, if you consciously made that choice and that's something that works for you today, but or yesterday, but then today you're back to being without alcohol, great, fine by me. I don't, I'm not hardcore. Someone actually early in their sobriety reached out to me because they were desperate and they were like in DTs. And I was like, well, have a beer. I don't know, to have one, if you just to get through this so that we can then get clear minded and figure it out. And I'm pretty sure that that's not uh, how you're supposed to do it. But the whole theme of my show, whatever works, it's we have two unofficial taglines. One is freedom from fuckery, and one is whatever works. And whatever works, I really mean it. If you need to drink that one beer to get through till tomorrow, and we can really start attacking this problem, then do it. If you want to go to AA, if you don't want to go to AA, if you need to smoke pot to stop drinking and pot's not a problem for you, smoke pot. I just think that life is hard enough, and there are 8.8 billion people on this planet. That tells me there are 8.8 billion ways to do anything.
Yeah, but again, I don't know if you see how wonderful that philosophy is for people. At least from my
Thanks.
perspective, because what I tend to see, particularly any of the 12-step programs, there can be a lot of preaching that happens, and for some people they like that, some people they don't.
Right.
And I think there's just a lot of emphasis on the perfection piece. Okay, well, this person's 30 years sober, and I'm only 30 minutes sober, and look at me, I'm a piece of shit, and I can't get sober. But the message that you're getting out there is that whatever helps you work through the substance use, and maybe that looks like yeah, dropping it all cold turkey, everything's fantastic, you never drink for the rest of your life. Maybe that means, every once in a blue moon, well, you have a blue moon. If that helps you, then great.
Yeah, exactly. If you can handle it. And if you can't handle it, I know I can't handle it with alcohol. One would just, I'd want to keep doing it and doing it. However, no problem with pot, none at all. So if that's what I need to get me through, I just heard a stat this morning. 1 in 6 people in our country are on SSRIs,
I believe it.
right? Crazy. So, okay, if that's the case, I am not going to feel bad about ripping into a pot gummy on a Friday night when everyone else, or 1 out of 6 people at least, is doing something to help them get through and help them be better and help them feel better. And we are better when we feel better, right? So substances, for our listeners at home, I'm doing air quotes, substances get a terrible rap. Well, isn't Prozac a substance then? Isn't Wellbutrin a substance? So why is that okay, but a pot gummy isn't? And a lot of people say it's not, and I don't take kindly to that. Here's the other thing I don't take kindly to while I'm at it. Many people in recovery spaces say if you're really sober, that you can't take medicine. And I just go crazy when I hear that, because that is deadly. That can be deadly. If you have if you have a prescription for some sort of a psychosis, then you should be taking that prescription. If you have surgery and you can handle the pain medication, you should take it. That's just me. Again, I am not trained in jack shit, so do not listen to me, but
You,
it's how I
I
feel.
agree with you. You'd be surprised how many times in my career I've said you should probably take your medication as prescribed, and people still don't. And then, lo and behold, problems show up. So, yes, I see your point that they are controlled substances. They can be helpful. And is it any worse than a CBD gummy on a Friday night or a pot brownie, like you said? My official therapist hat would say, try not to use anything. But even then, I don't know if I believe that
Well,
fully because
why?
sometimes
Why
people need
nothing?
to moderate.
Yeah. Is it is there only one way to live this life, clean and free of all external things? I mean, to me that sounds a little idealistic and Pollyanna, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's that perfectionism coming into place, and if you want to get off substances, none at all, and this is the way to do it. It just doesn't work that way for people.
Not for everybody. Not for everybody, you know. And I also don't. I think life is hard, and it's okay to step out of it for a minute if you can do so safely. Again, bad sobriety person here, so but this is just my own 2 cents.
I don't think so. I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because I think what you're doing with soberness is, and what you're doing just in your own personal life, is pretty inspirational. I mean, that's why I was so excited to have you on. I wonder too. This whole show is about mental health, but also I have guided meditations that I put out there. Some ways to connect with the spiritual. You've mentioned God is great, and I wonder how maybe throughout your sobriety journey, your spirituality has changed.
So this has been very interesting to me. I've been a spiritual student my whole life, and even though I have this, I don't even want to say I have a deep and active faith, meaning part of why I don't mind being alone, or rather I like it, is because I never feel alone. I always feel accompanied by God, by spirit, by whatever, whoever. I always feel that. And so, and I've always felt that. And so it's interesting to me that during my sobriety efforts, have not leaned on God. And the reason why is because I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to ask God for help because I know better. And this is where this idea of guilt and shame is so insidious for an addict,
Mm-hmm.
because because substantiating my whole idea about it's a choice a little, that God knows and I know when I cheated, when I could have put down the wine but didn't, when all the things. And I feel like, God, if I was a stronger person, then I could maybe stand before God. So, how has spirituality played into my sobriety? So, it's been interesting ever since really recognizing that and identifying this idea of the guilt and the shame, and how what a hindrance it is to actually getting better. Um, I have been spending time talking to God about it, and bringing it into my own personal kind of meditations when I mull over questions. The only answer is, well, stop keeping it from God, stop keeping it separate, and and uh, and that is what I've been trying to do. So, and my prayer to God when I'm feeling anxious or like I want to reach for something is very rudimentary. It's God now, now,
Hey, if it works, it
and
works.
yeah, whatever works, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. When I get frustrated with one of my sons, I just have to. My prayer then, loud in the moment, is love now, now. I need to feel all this love now. I need the power of love to hit me now, because otherwise I'm gonna pull someone's hair out, mine or theirs. And so the older I get, the simpler my prayers get, the simpler um my let's see. I've tried to do this life so many different ways, right? Meditate if I and I say when I say this life, I mean have spirituality in my life so many different ways. Meditating at 5 in the morning, working with teachers, not working with teachers, making meditation a big deal, or making singing a big deal, or making and I it's just all of that seems to fall away for me these days. It's very simple. God now, love now, relief, release, whatever the things I need. I just please come to me now
Yeah.
with that. And it's been working. And I've even moved my meditation practice from some more formal meditations that I got through a teacher I've been working with for a long time, to just sitting with music and just being with it and not having to count to three with my breath and exhale for four. Like that kind of stuff was tripping me up somehow. And so now I've just gotten to the lizard brain, very basic, music, God, now.
I mean, it sounds like a great mindfulness practice. So, I mean, that helps with a lot of different mental health things. But just so many nuggets there to dive into. I mean, first off, you were talking a lot about how that shame and guilt can come up, and it is such a killer when it comes to any kind of sobriety, substance use. I mean, not just that. I mean, it can be other disorders too. Like I primarily work with trauma. Of course, as soon as the shame and guilt come up, isolate, withdraw. Don't want to be around anybody. And so, who the heck wants to feel shame and guilt? So, might as well go for something that makes me feel a little bit better. But then, of course, that defeats the purpose of the goal of sobriety, whatever that looks like for somebody. And so for you, it sounds like, and it's so interesting that you're bringing this up, talk about synchronicities. I'm reading A Course in Miracles right now,
Oh, great.
which, yes, I don't know if you've ever read it. It sounds like you have.
Yeah, long time ago. Yeah, I did a course in miracles. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And the thing that you're really bringing to this forefront is this idea that we are worthy as we are, and we don't really need to hide anything. That's just kind of us forgetting our nature, and it's just so cool to see that is coming out for you more and more these days, even if it's just in simple ways.
Can I share a story with you?
Please.
I've never talked about this on the air before, but it seems like the time. So, in my 20s, my mid 20s, I've always dealt with obsessive compulsive disorder. I've always dealt with crashing thoughts. That's how I feel like my thoughts loop and then they crash. And I've had that my whole life, and it's like any good disorder, flares up and calms down. And I was living in San Francisco at the time and visiting New York City. And I was also drinking and didn't know how to get out of that loop. So very early one morning, I'll never forget it. It was in August and it was very hot because in Soho, with all the metal fronts on the buildings, they would um, hose the fronts of the buildings down with water to bring down the heat. So there was this like sparkly hot morning, because all the water had been dripping down the front of the buildings, and it was so loud in my head. It was so loud in my head, and thoughts are crashing, and I'm hungover, and I'm feeling so unworthy. And at that moment, I heard a voice that said, "Sit down." So I sat down, and I knew that the voice I heard and the presence I felt was that of Mary. And I'm Jewish and didn't know anything about Mary. Like no one ever, I had no idea. But I knew that that's who that was. And I, in my head, said, "How could you be coming to me? I'm such a mess." And she said, "It is in your humanness that we love you."
Wow.
And it changed everything in that moment because I understood like a deeper love than I ever really had known. Love on the human plane can be very conditional because people want to see certain outcomes and we all try to follow certain rules and scripts. And at that time, I felt, oh, there are no conditions I'm meeting right now for anybody to love this.
Yeah.
And for her to explain divine love to me like that, really, it sort of, I should have recalled that instead of feeling such guilt and shame around God and not wanting to bring my addiction issues to my spiritual self. I guess that was I should have remembered what had happened all those years ago. But anyway,
Well,
so sort of speaks to what you were talking about earlier.
yeah, what a beautiful story, and thank you so much for sharing that. It's so powerful. And you say you should remember that. I mean, life is heavy, and habit. I mean, I talk about mindfulness too, and I hate this term, but in a lot of mindfulness literature, they talk about mindlessness. It makes it sound like you're
Yeah.
crazy. So I
Yeah.
prefer
Yeah.
autopilot, right? And so
Yeah.
we get on autopilot, and it's just so easy to just kind of just fall back into that. So
Hmm.
it makes sense that maybe it takes some time for that message to sink in, and it's so powerful that love that is actually ours. We don't need to earn it. That
Right. And that's
it's
wild. And
overwhelming.
right. And I think it's because love on earth feels like we have to do stuff to earn it. Uh,
Yeah.
we learn it from the beginning with our parents. I'm sure my kids feel that way about me. It's terrible. Oh, this is awful. Anyway, moving on.
Anyways, speaking of love, I think this is a
Yeah.
lovely segue into the work that you do with the inmates. You prefer inmates, prisoners? I'm not sure.
Incarcerated individuals.
Incarcerated individuals. So you are going not only into the prisons to work with them, but your organization, and I want to make sure I get the name right, it is the Restorative Housing Organization, is also
Yeah.
giving them homes. What is all this
So,
about? What an amazing initiative.
well, what happened with that was okay. So we moved here to Coney Island. I'll just keep saying it over and over. We moved to Coney Island, and listen, New York City is a packed, busy place, and to live on the ocean in Brooklyn, New York, is cuckoo, and it's gorgeous. I live, it's a little peninsula. So we used to live in downtown Brooklyn, and I am telling you, it costs less than a third to live here and have this life because it's a little far out, and New Yorkers like to be right in the center of it. So for a bargain, and I love a bargain, so at a huge discount, I got to move my family to the beach, and I see the ocean from every window all the time, and it just changed everything. It gave me this opportunity to start healing. And again, it was so catastrophic for me to lose my show that I really didn't know if I was ever going to make it out. I've never ever had suicidal thoughts, and I didn't have them then, but I was like, I just don't know how I'm going to live this life. And
Mhm.
it was really dark. And so I felt so grateful to this place and to the ocean, and I wanted to share it because I am white, Jewish, and guilty, and that's really the truth. And so
It's a great band name, by the way.
white. I love it. Yes, you're absolutely right. So that's really funny. So I was out there, kind of like singing to the ocean, praying about how do I share it, and the idea kind of just showed up. This restorative housing. Let's figure out a way to get people who wouldn't be able to live on the water to live on the water. And then I prayed on who needs it the most. And because who doesn't? Everybody needs it. But people who've lived in cages was sort of the resounding message that came to me. And so the way I figured out to set it up was we we had a little place upstate that we sold, so we used that money to buy an undervalued waterfront little campus, actually, in the Bronx on City Island, and it had three little houses that were in need of some TLC. So for that, I hired formerly incarcerated workers to come live on the property throughout the life of the project, so they could live on the water, work on the water, and some lived on and some didn't. And together we really brought that little campus to life. And then I and then that's sort of where the nonprofit stops. But then we rent out the houses to Section 8 voucher holders.
Mhm.
So these are families that probably wouldn't be able to afford to live in waterfront properties in New York. And as far as I know, we are the only waterfront freestanding home Section 8 properties in New York City.
Wow.
And we have, so it's three houses on that campus. And we did another project in Queens on a little with a house there that we turned. Anyway, we ended up with a 5-bedroom house. And so this family that had been living in a 2-bedroom apartment of grown people, a mom and 4 kids, grown, were able to move into a house on a little creek in Queens. And so that's what we want to do more of. Unfortunately, I'm not really a great fundraiser. So we're looking right now for a development person to help bring us to the next level, because it's not cheap, but
Oh no.
but I believe in it so much, because what's it called, a virtuous circle, that every dollar we spend goes to uh, help someone who's formerly incarcerated, help uh, with both housing and employment. And the stats are pretty bad. If you don't have housing and employment in the first 3 years after prison, you may go back. The
Yes.
odds are better that you'll go back. And in fact, what I'd like to do moving forward with the organization is really teach these returning citizens how to start their own business legally, and so that because it is hard for anyone to find a job, but certainly with backgrounds like theirs, it can be especially challenging. And these are really smart people who know how to do business, but we got to figure out how to get some legal businesses set up. And I
Sure,
think that
sure.
that might be kind of teaching a man to fish type of thing. But in the meantime, I'm also, we're looking to fundraise so that we can buy our next building, so that the nonprofit itself can own, and it can be housing for guys coming out, or gals too. We just seem to get more guys, I guess, because of the nature of the work. But I
Yeah.
try to hire women, or to hire anyone.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's what that is. And it's a tiny organization. It's just me, and I have a 2-person board, and I self-funded our first project to test the concept. And then we have a great funder named Little Red Hen Foundation, and through their support, we were able to renovate one home into a from a one fam from a sorry, a 1 bedroom into a 3 bedroom. So we were able to welcome a larger family there, and I'm hoping to do more stuff like that
Oh,
uh, in the new year.
wow. That's such an incredible incredible initiative that you can give these people some sort of normalcy after leaving prison, because it is tough. I've seen it many times myself in the work I've done, especially when I was
Yeah,
doing community mental health in Chicago. Just, I mean, anyone that had any kind of prison time, parole, probation, all that stuff, it gets hard for them to find employment. It gets hard for them to find housing. Usually they're in poorer neighborhoods. And by poor, not necessarily, well, I guess it would be both economically and safety wise neighborhoods.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the fact that you can put them on the ocean and give them an opportunity to heal, that's incredible.
Thank you. Listen, the concept I am in love with. I really, and I don't even have to scale huge, but there, I'm learning I have to be able to provide some more follow through. And what I mean by that is, I've had probably 12 guys that I've worked with over the course of the project so far, and one of them back in prison, and the other one's back in rehab. Another one went MIA, back onto the streets, because it's not. I pay the most I can pay, which is like twice the minimum wage. But it's
Yeah.
still not. It's not enough when you have no home, no job, your family's turned their back. They don't have. So that's why I'm saying I'd like to be able to either or and both teach them some sustainable legal business skills, and also give some true long-term housing. The housing I'm able to provide is short-term, and I'd like to be able to do more. So I keep saying it out loud. I want to speak it into existence. Hopefully some amazing donors will say, we agree, and here, have this building. So that's what we're
Yeah.
going for.
Well, that's great, and I will do what I can. Anyone out there listening, there will
Thank
be the
you.
link to this in the description, so please go check out this initiative. I mean, it's really some incredible stuff. It's nothing I've ever heard of before either, so it's quite unique. And if you can help Kat out in any way, even if it's throwing her $5, like go on, help her out.
Every bit helps.
Yes, every bit helps. So that's what you do outside of the prisons. And by the way, I realize we might even be going over time here, so I want to be respectful of your schedule because I want to keep
Thank
talking,
you.
but
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yes, no,
keep
I
you if you need to
appreciate
go.
that. Thank you. I do have a meeting at 3:15, but let's go until then.
Okay, all right. Well, just very quickly then, I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more about what you do when you are actually inside of the prisons.
So, on my 10th sober anniversary, September 29th, 2 years ago, I I launched a battle. I wanted to get inside the prison to bring recovery there. And it was not easy to, there's a lot of red tape for good reason. Anyway, but finally I was able to make my way into women's prison. I had only really worked with men in my formerly incarcerated groups and at our nonprofit. So I hadn't ever worked with incarcerated women. But I began going into the prison, and I was so nervous that they wouldn't want to talk and that they would be suspicious of me. And from the first second, the groups were lively, they are dynamic. Um, I will say that, oh, it's challenging in that, so we hold the classic AA sort of structure of meetings, but because I'm not orthodox about anything anywhere, they do take on different forms. I do a lot of guided meditation. It's And for all the talking that we do as we go around the circle, I will say that the guided meditations are where it really gets real. Women who are hard as nails and stone-faced and badasses, the toughest ones are the ones that weep the hardest when we go inside. And I am so grateful that they open up and allow themselves to be moved in that way. But as an untrained person, all I have to greet them with is love, and I can't hug them, no touching in prison, right? So I wish I knew more like you do. I wish I was trained a little bit so I could actually help them with some actionable steps they can take to start reconciling what's gone on with them. So I am, looking into going back to school so that I can have some real tools. They really deserve it. If you're brave enough to go within and touch something that makes you weep that deeply, I think you also deserve some steps to learn how to feel better.
Absolutely.
So that's where it's at.
Well, certainly, right, what a great calling to go back to school and help those people out in particular. And of course, if there's ever anything I can do to help you, please let me know. I will say this because I think it may help you in your work. A lot of times people think, well, I need all the different techniques or I need the different types of therapy, and that's what's really helpful. I've always been taught in all of the various classes I've been in, the most important part of any therapeutic relationship is, well, the therapeutic relationship, having that relationship. And the techniques that come after that, they can be helpful. It's not like you should dismiss them entirely, but those can't happen until the relationship is there. And if you're able to greet them with love and compassion, that may be just the best place for them to start. So kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's great. Forget school then. I have love and compassion.
That's right. Who needs
it? In that?
That's right. Yeah, I think so. I found the other day that you can get a PhD in leadership. So, you can become a doctor,
really?
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you can get a PhD in anything.
I guess so. Oh my goodness gracious. You're a real PhD, right?
Yes. Clinical psychology, yes.
That's so amazing. And I have one question for you.
Please.
Why did you start the show?
This show. So I had an opportunity, 9 years ago, to actually do a depression seminar, and that's when I was a master's level clinician. And at the last minute, they canceled it. But as part of my preparation, I recorded a quick meditation to help with depression. And I had it. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do with it? I could put it up somewhere, but I wasn't very knowledgeable about YouTube or anything like that, how to actually get it out there. So I said, why not learn how to do a podcast? And that's what I did. And it's been going ever since. So 2016 to now.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yes.
Well, then I guess I should back it up. What called you to psychology at all?
So for me, the thing that was truly transformative for me, my parents are actually divorced, and they had a divorce in high school when I was in high school. Not when they were in high school. That would be a little weird.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And achievers.
Yes, that's right. And so during that divorce, I met with a therapist who just changed my life. It was just she did incredible work with me, and I'm forever grateful to her. And I knew I wanted to do this work, so I did the long journey to get my master's, and realized I couldn't do half the things that I wanted to do with the degree that I had. So I left mental health for a little bit, decided to try and come back, kind of like you with broadcasting, and I just kept hitting a lot of roadblocks. And so I said, all right, if I can't get the job I want with the degree I had, then I need to improve it. So I went back 2017, wrapped up in 2023, and here I am.
Wow. Wow. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
really
I
cool.
appreciate that. It was quite the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Still going, right? I mean,
Yes,
always.
absolutely. Well, listen, I know your time is short, and I'm truly grateful for you being here and sharing your stories. They're fantastic stories, and I hope my audience also agrees, and I want them to show you some love. So where can people find you to support you in all the great things that you do?
Thank you for asking. So we're on all the socials, which are at Cat Greenleaf, CatGreenleaf. And then the website for the show is Soberness, SOBERNESS.com. And I know I'm always supposed to say, oh, do you hear that ringing? Or is that only in my ear?
I don't
Sorry.
know.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, I'm going to decline that call. So my producer says I always have to say, please like, share, tell your friends. Because again, your every little bit
Yep, I get
count.
it.
Restorative housing.org. Restorative housing.org. And there's a function there where you can, donate. And if you want to donate as a Christmas gift to anybody, as a holiday gift, we can send you a little certificate. I just made that up right now, but it sounds like something I could definitely
incredible.
do.
Yeah.
Right, like if you haven't figured out what to give your parents for Christmas, give them some housing for formerly incarcerated people and
That's right.
some employment. How about that? Gift that keeps giving. And that's it. And I'm Kat at soberness.com.
Wonderful. Well, I'll have all those links in the description. So if you haven't already gone there, look in the show notes. Go there right now. Support Kat and all that she is doing. Kat, thank you so much for being here. And as for the rest of you, thank you so much for listening all the way until the end. And until next time, be safe, be well, be powerful.